dive right in. You may not have heard of Estonia. You may not know much about it, or what you have heard may have come in bits and pieces. You may know that it's a former Soviet state, that it regained independence in 1990, and you may know a couple things here and there, like they make some of the world's best pianos, or that character from Tintin, Flight 714, was Estonian. What you may not realize is that over the last 20 years, the country has been undergoing a transformation that's no less profound and no less relevant than, say, Singapore. In less than a generation, Estonia has increased its GDP nearly 10 times. It's joined the Eurozone, and successfully. It's joined NATO, it's joined the OECD, and it's joined the European Union as well. So from a former post-Soviet, post-communist state in 1990, they've done some remarkable things. One of the ways, the key strategic decisions they made early into the country's development was to leverage technology, and specifically software. That is, in a country that's so small, the defining feature of Estonia is really that it's 1.3 million people. You really need to rely on something, otherwise your tax isn't going to get collected, your accounting isn't going to get done. So very early on, they started building out their systems, core government systems, digital first. And so you have an e-tax system, then they went to e-healthcare, e-school, and Andrus will talk a little bit about this in a second. A couple years ago, they realized, hey, we built an e-utopia, but we're still 1 million people. So the idea became, how do you take all these advantages, all of this stuff that you've built in the digital sphere on a government perspective, and export it far and wide. The idea they came up with, they called e-Residency, and I actually have an e-Residency card in my pocket here. This is the first government-backed digital ID that's available to anyone. You can sign up for it. I can sign up for it. You pick it up at the embassy, give them your fingerprints, do an interview, and all of a sudden you have access to all these Estonian systems, the e-healthcare, e-school, what have you, as though you were Estonian. Now, why does this matter? Well, for the simple reason that if you're an entrepreneur, you can all of a sudden sign up to create a business in Estonia on a web form in 15 minutes flat. And if you're in a country that might not accept PayPal, like, say, Malaysia, you can get this card, stick it into your computer, register an Estonian business, and open an Estonian bank account and get PayPal in Estonia. So it's playing with the ideas of what is a nation state in a digital world. What is government's obligation? What is their role? Fundamentally, we've found that it's been a bit of a catalyst because the government, if you look at this timeline, is doing things a little bit backwards. What country starts marketing a program before they've decided, they've set the laws on it? Or what country starts developing it without having figured out the team yet? Or what country starts promoting it internationally before they have the website so that you can apply remotely? In many ways, this is government acting like a startup. Fail fast, ask for forgiveness, not for permission, and it's sort of a redefinition of what you'd imagine government would be. So if we look on the next page, awesome. You're seeing that they're looking at the use cases for this very much like a startup would. who might our customers be? How might we best serve them? You'll see stuff in here like e-Residency can absolutely transform the logistics industry. Shipping. 30% of shipping costs, to some extent, are conducted because two parties can't figure out how to sign a contract or a landing bill together. All of a sudden, you can use Estonia as a trusted third party. Remember, it's an EU, it's a full-fledged member of EU and NATO to identify you. And now you can use the chip that's on this to sign contracts and documents digitally. So we're looking quite broadly at what the individual use cases are and what the corporate use cases are. But they fall squarely in the theme of this conference, which is on in the individual side, it's to promote collaboration. And on the corporate side, it's to promote productivity more generally. Another case we're looking quite strongly at is the construction industry. If you have a party in one country that wants to build a building, and they'll hire an architect in another country and a design firm in the third, you need a go between among them. So if you look at the landscape of what the government's come up with so far, we're focusing it largely on the corporate use case for now, though you can of course pick up the card and use it to sign and encrypt whatever document you'd like. They've already built out the systems to register companies, to pay taxes, and the PayPal integration and all is working fine. So the idea is really that they've built it already for the Estonians themselves. The marginal cost of issuing this ID card is actually quite low. So it allows government to act like in a very positive sum way. If you look at most of human history, the world was constructed and fought over in a very zero-sum way. The point of a military is for me to get some territory so that you don't have it. And governments evolved thinking zero-sum, especially when it comes to taxation and corporate residency. Estonia, by contrast, is making this available far and wide to anyone who asks for it. And in doing so, they're engendering a positive sum mindset, which is ultimately what I think the kind of thinking you would need to start really tackling deep-set productivity and collaboration problems. And by the way, this is largely what I spend my day job on at SAP, thinking about simplification. So if we look at the next page, why Estonia is uniquely qualified to do this? Why would you trust this little country? Well, it's a country that, in so many ways, had a very difficult past. And so they wouldn't screw up their emergence on the world stage by issuing these cards and giving a trap door. You also have to trust that the country's motives today are pure because the population isn't going to grow exponentially. It'll grow linearly. And so for Estonia to continue to punch above its weight, for it to continue to have an outsized impact in the cyber and the e-government sphere, it needs to learn to export this stuff. And I think this all speaks to, if you abstract it up a level, what are the characteristics of innovation economies and innovation systems? It shouldn't surprise you that the government is acting like an innovator like this, because they're deeply authentic. They know every day they sort of wake up and say, okay, we have to get our act together as a country, otherwise Russia. So they know why they're doing what they say they're doing. There's an existential threat, so there's an urgency there. There's also humility, because you only have 1 million Estonians. The power distance isn't very high. You might see a minister buying groceries in the shopping cart next to you as you're buying groceries. And finally, the only way that any of this happened, this is sitting at the top of a long history, a long chain of government services infrastructure. It came through straight discipline. There aren't too many Estonians, so every Estonian had to figure out where where they could best fit. And so my background, my experience was largely in Silicon Valley and in startups and in innovation systems, and this was an incredible natural fit. I spent the earlier part of 2015, a few months in Estonia. Andrus and I will talk about that in a couple minutes, but for now I thought I would tee it up so that you would at least want to meet a real Estonian rather than a fake one. So Andrus, please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Aman, and I will take over from here, giving some background how Estonia came to offer the so-called e-Residency platform to the world, and what was really the reason and what was happening before that in Estonia. As Aman already mentioned, that actually everything happened with the electronic ID cards that was introduced in 2002, and that was really the basis for all the e-government services and also private services that were built around that. And this card is now compulsory for all the Estonians. It gives you a digital number so that you can be identified in the internet, and that number is actually a public number. So that also helps to connect various databases with your data. But to access these databases, this means you need also like two-level of public key or security key infrastructure, and we see that well, it is also like a law in Estonia that all the data or the health records, bank records, or whatever they are your records. So the bank cannot use them other than providing services to you, or for example, the health records, the hospitals can only use it for your services. And we can also check who has checked our data. So everybody who logs in into the system, and the only way to log into the system is through the ID card. There are no other back doors. That means that you always leave like a footprint, and that is always logged. And from 2002, we started all kind of so-called e-government services nowadays. I think the best known is how quickly you can start a business in Estonia, really in 15 minutes, and everything is done. The tax, you can all report your taxes, are they personal taxes or company taxes, very quickly. I think already like 90% or even 98% of people are using that, and all the banking transactions are actually digital. So there is very few bank offices remaining in Estonia, physical offices. And why it is good to do business in Estonia? We have a very unique so-called business environment or legal environment. We have a flat tax rate, which is 20% for everybody, for people, for physical persons, and also for the companies. But the companies pay the tax only when they take out the money from the company, meaning that dividends are taxed only. So if you keep it in the company, you grow with the company, you don't pay any corporate tax. And that really makes a difference when building and expanding your businesses. And of course, these very, very simple rules have, together with the e-tax boards and all other kind of business support mechanisms, electronic mechanisms, have put Estonia on the very high level of different ratings, or the business ratings or economic freedom index. Actually, we are the #1 country in the European Union in this, so meaning that how little the government is involved in hindering your business activities. And that is very easy to deal with the government. And we also have a law that you only once have to give your data to the government, meaning that your address or whatever, your name. And then the government has to sort it out between the different databases themselves. So you don't need to start writing every application again. Everything is already pre-filled. And actually the tax report or tax declaration is as well already pre-filled, because all your employers give the information, how much salary you are getting and how much tax is already paid from that. And also the banks have to give the information as well. So you're just checking, is everything okay? Or if you have done some sponsorships or giving money out to, how you call them, being like a charity, yes, so that you can really even get like a tax refund from that. And usually the tax refund comes in within a week if you have done that after reporting your taxes. And all this business environment has also created like a startup boom in Estonia. I hope that everybody knows what Skype is. And I hope that some of you know that Skype is very strongly connected with Estonia. All the founding engineers were Estonians, and still right now the biggest Skype office globally is in Estonia. So we can call this so-called startup phenomenon as a Skype phenomenon that has happened in Estonia, and now recently we also have like a second unicorn, TransferWise, with Estonian founders, which is really based in London, headquartered in London, but they are now already valued over $1 billion with the recent funding from Andrus and Horowitz from here in Silicon Valley. But it's not only the startups per capita that we are good at. There is also very beautiful women in Estonia. I don't talk about men, we are also beautiful. But really the per capita number of international fashion models is the biggest in Estonia. And then, of course, very good platform for the innovators, startups, and venture capitalists to really meet and network is the Latitude 59 event in Estonia, in Tallinn. And next year it's in the end of May. So please keep an eye on that. Please come and join us, or you can also view it over the internet. So that was my very brief discussion or introduction to Estonia. So what has happened before we introduced e-Residency to the world. So thank you.